Good morning and welcome to your fourth class in Research Communication or 科技英文. You have now already had 3 semesters and this will be your final semester, so I'm looking forward to teaching you. Let's now consider this class. In the past, you have took basic oral, in which you studied some of the basic oral communication skills on basically a one-to-one basis, or in terms of a listening to lectures basis. You then went on in the second semester to look at the basic written communication skills that an engineer would need, again in terms of one-to-one communication. Last semester, we moved on to more advanced written skills that you would probably require as a graduate student as you write your thesis, or write a scientific paper, or you write a technical report for a company that you are involved with. And finally, in this semester, we are going to be concentrating on some advanced oral skills. In this case, we're looking at the oral skills involved in making a presentation that is clear, understandable, and persuasive to other people in the industry or area in which you are working. So let's move on and look at this advanced oral. Now for advanced oral, we call it presenting at conferences. There are 3 main goals: to learn how to organize a talk for a scientific conference, to learn how to speak clearly and understandably at a conference, and to learn how to create and present scientific view graphs. So these are 3 different types of skills. Organizing is obviously going to be similar whether you're doing a Chinese talk or an English language talk. Speaking clearly and understandably, that's an English skill. Creating and presenting scientific view graphs, that's again an international skill whether you're doing it in English or Chinese. So in order to meet these objectives, I have chosen the following contents. Basically, we're going to look at public speaking skills. We're going to look about how to prepare a conference presentation. And finally, we'll talk about some of the skills and techniques that are needed when you present at a conference. The evaluation and formatting of this class is going to be different from other classes. So in this class, you can see continuous grading is 30 points, while the conference in which you have an opportunity to present your work is going to be a total of 70 points. 50 points for your presentation, 20 points for how you respond and react in the conference. So let's now look at our timeline and how we're going to try to accomplish these things. This is an 18-week course, so we're following this timeline. So for the first week, we're just going to be overviewing the course, giving you an idea of what you'll be doing, getting involved in your group, and then explaining about what the conference is going to be like. Next week, we'll talk about how you start to organize a presentation. And in the third week of this course, we'll talk about how you speak clearly and understandably. By this time, you should have decided your topic and have submitted your abstract for your research presentation. Once we have a topic in mind, we can then learn a little bit how do we confidently present it, and how do we use a single keyword outline to help us to remember our talk. We'll talk a little bit how do you make the art of making a good slide or a view graph. And then finally, we'll have some good PBL time and instructor feedback time as you work on your own presentation in week 7. In week 8, as we move past the midterm exam, we'll talk a little bit about how you actually go into presenting. In other words, when you're at the conference area, how do you present? How do you deal with the audience? How do you try to answer questions? How, if you are selected to be the chair of a session, how do you do it? And then finally, we'll be going into the conference itself, in which by about week 11. The conference itself, every student will present for 15 minutes, and we will listen to every other student. It will likely be on a Friday night and Saturday. so that it'll be in a conference format. Are there any questions up until now? Well, let's now continue and now start to enter the PowerPoints. I'd first like to overview the course a little bit, since we already know each other as fellow classmates and we've already talked to each other in the past. So I've downloaded it. We'll start our PowerPoints. Click on the small icon to start the presentation. Okay, presenting at conferences. Let's overview the unit. And try to listen carefully as I introduce this unit. I have just come back now from Canada where I did a nice sabbatical. So first of all, the skill sets that we're trying to evolve, I think it's a little bit like a triangle. The first skill set, in the past, we have been talking about, first of all, one-to-one communication, one to infinity, and one to infinity. In other words, so we've looked at one-to-one conversation being you, when you're either the initiator or the person who's responding. You've taken both roles. One is the conversation initiator, one is the receiver. We then talked about one to infinity when you were the listener, okay, in an oral skill set. In other words, you were listening to one person, maybe me, maybe a other teacher talking, but this talk was aimed for everybody in the class. You were just one member of the class. Now, in this class, we're going to be looking at how you communicate with many, many people. Now, the skill set is very different because if you're speaking to one person, it's very easy to recognize if the person understands you or is very confused. And they probably will ask you. But if you are speaking to a whole class, it's quite possible the class will not respond to you or tell you that they're not listening, they're bored, they can't understand. So the skill set that we are trying to evaluate, okay, so is to recognize is that these scientific presentations are an integrated skill set. There is one aspect of the triangle is speaking. That would be your correct pronunciation, your correct grammar, and a feeling of fluency. So when we talk about pronunciation, you know that means. If I'm saying no, K-N-O-W, I pronounce it as no, not kno, kno. Grammar, you know that aspect, like he is a boy, he are a boy. No, that's a grammar problem. And finally, fluency. Fluency deals with whether your sentences are flowing or are staccato-like. For example, today I am going to school to see my friend, which is pretty good. Okay, but if I said it like this, today I am going to school to see a friend. Okay, that's not fluent. The second point of the triangle for a good presentation is its organization. First of all, your talk should be logical. You don't say different things at different times in your talk, and it should be organized in a natural way that people feel it is flowing as the conversation continues. And finally, the third point here would be the quality of your view graphs. If you have high quality of the view graphs, the listener should be able to understand your talk almost without you even giving the talk. So in light of these goals, this about interest about English, let's look at our objectives. We're going to learn how to, what are we going to do? Organize a technical talk for a conference. We're going to learn how to speak clearly and understandably. We are going to learn how to create technical view graphs, I hope. These are the things are the standards that I expect to evaluate you on by the end of the course. And I also want to give you the experience of presenting in front of other people. Because it's one thing to present to a computer screen like me now, or to present to a whole bunch of other people who are your peers. There's a lot more pressure in one situation. Next, I would like to work on practicing our listening skills, because when you're not going to just listen to me, I'm hoping you'll also listen to your classmates and learn from them. So let's now look at the contents of this course. Public speaking skills, obviously. It's a bit oral English for public speaking, so obviously we're going to have to do public speaking skills. But we also are going to talk about how do you prepare a technical presentation. These are more concepts on how we work around in getting a good technical presentation. How do we organize a good technical presentation? How do we design our view graphs for a good technical presentation? And then finally, we'll have the experience of presenting at the conference, because there's no such thing as doing something that is sort of best to test in a real environment, or as much as possible a real environment. And finally, hopefully we can also gain some skills in evaluating other people's technical presentations. Was it a good presentation? What was good about it? What was bad about it? Was the data does the data seem true? Okay, now for some reason people want to know how we are evaluated. Let's echo this again. There's 100 points. Continuous grading during our classroom sessions will be 30 points. The X-Talk conference, which we held on a Friday night and Saturday, will have a total of 70 points awarded. 50 points will be for your presentation, and 20 points for your participation and how you grade, peer grading the other students. Now this is kind of interesting. So everyone is expected to ask questions, and you're also expected to grade other people's presentations. I will take, when I give your presentation mark, I will take into account what your peers graded you. Also, when I'm trying to figure out how well you know the courses, I'm going to see how your grading, peer grading, relates to what I thought about how the presentation was good. Of course, your marks will be better if you have similar thoughts of me about what was good. All right, so that's the grading. And you can see by the website we'll have more details. Now, do we have any questions? You may ask the tutors. This semester, for our groups, I would like to let you choose, but there are going to be some requirements and restrictions. And the seating arrangement, I haven't completed it for this semester, so I'm going to keep it here until I'm able to complete. Oh, okay. Seating arrangement again will be 4 people in a group. 4 people in a group approximately. Now, let's move there. Okay, I want you to form a group of 4 people subject to the following requirements. Each group must have either a female student or an international student, but no more group may have more than 1 female student and 1 international student. So please try to form, so hopefully each group will have maybe, for example, an acceptable group would be 3 Taiwan boys, 1 Taiwan girl, or 3 Taiwan boys, 2 Taiwan boys, 1 female student, 1, okay, yeah, so that would be okay. And you may not have 4 international students. That would not be a good group. You can have 1 international student in a group, and you may have 1 female student. You may not have more than 1 female student. Okay? If there ends up to be some problem with this, I'll try to revise it a little bit. But right now, that is basically the rule that we're trying to get. Once you have formed a group that meets these conditions, please register your names with the teaching assistant. Okay, so once you've got a group of 4 people together, write their names down, give it to the TA, and I'll enter them in, and we'll start to use you for grade. Your marks will be for grading that way. Okay, so that's the important part about dividing into groups. And again, in 3306, this is a seating arrangement, and we'll have a similar seating arrangement in our class with you sitting around the table with the other members of your group. This was an example of groups in the previous year, and how we laid out the things. This would be our sheet showing that we divided into up to L groups. And so each group is responsible for other members of their group. Yeah, remember that when you form your group. You are also responsible for other members of your group. Not as harsh as the Japanese. The Japanese before had a system called 5 people, 1 group. So if any member in the group did something bad, the whole group was punished. We may not be that strict. Okay.